Boom. That ought to fix it. Yeah. Presented by Marcus and Mack, voted best law firm, best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row on the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online, marcusandmack.com. All right, so I just teased it to the folks. So what we were going to talk about today, the Farmer's Almanac Garden Guide is newly out. So every summer they put out their garden guide, and one of the subject areas in it is trends for 2025. And among those trends is vertical gardens. We actually had a segment with Lesser Lumber a week or so ago, our Lesser Lumber Weekly spot, where we told you how to make a vertical garden using a pallet, which was kind of interesting. But is it a trend? I mean, do you get questions about it, or is there literature on it? What is the advantage of a vertical garden? I would assume space is one thing.
Yeah. Well, definitely space. That's probably one of the key things, because you can grow up, and you can put a lot more plants, in that vertical space than you can on a horizontal space. So yes, that's a definite one of the advantages of doing that. And there's a lot of defined vertical garden, because you see, with pallets, that's kind of more of a.
You've got the slats, and then
you got the
space
slats
between.
in there and the space between, and so you can stack those up and make a wall. Essentially, what you're doing, and you could.
But then your plants are growing out toward you instead of straight up.
Yes, and you could grow them out both directions from that pallet. It doesn't just have to be attached to a wall. It could be a vertical wall that you can work at from both sides, so you can kind of double your.
I see. Yeah.
Plants that way. Even in orchards, fruiting, apple orchards, they are growing more vertical. They plant the trees a lot closer together and have a vertical wall, essentially. So it's almost like a spalier system, where you would grow that plant against a wall, and have it pretty flat. But it's in a row, and so it can fruit on both sides of the tree, but you keep the tree narrow. Same concept. And then there's a lot of vertical systems that you can use in a greenhouse, vertical grow pots, essentially. And there are stackers where the pots stack and they offset, and so you have the four corners of the pot where you plant, and then you have another one of those that sits on top of that, and there's a pole that goes up through the middle. So there's a lot of different options for doing that. And then anytime you go controlled CEA, or controlled environment agriculture, that's another piece of that, really, because a lot of those systems are vertically grown when you grow in a building. It might not be in a traditional greenhouse setting. It might be in an old warehouse, or in a new warehouse, or underground. And then we have to use supplemental lighting and all the resources that go into that to make that happen in what is otherwise a dark place.
I'm sure that a lot of gardening shops will have instruction books and best practices types of things, and some sort of material that can help you get started on something like that.
Yeah, and
but you wonder about trends like that, if they actually are going to be trends, or if they're just going to fade away. And
if it's something that's just catching on, there may have like the vertical systems in the greenhouse. That's been around for decades, actually.
I know Yarnix uses it sometimes.
They have had systems like that, and sometimes those things catch on, or sometimes, that's a trend. People start to do it, but then they find out that, well, maybe it's not as great as what it was espoused to be, or you find there's pluses and minuses to all these things.
Sure.
And you kind of figure that out as you go, some of it. And in different environments too. Sometimes it works in certain places, and others it's not as effective or doesn't work as well.
Yeah. I want to get out into the garden and talk about what the heat has done to certain plants within the garden, because we started the week with our ground very, very moist because of all of the rain that we'd gotten prior to this heat wave. The heat wave comes on. The ground is still very moist, even with the heat that we've had all this week. But some plants seem to handle the hot weather better than others. My bean plants were looking wonderful, and a bunch of them said, "No, thanks. That's we didn't sign up for this."
Too much.
Yeah, but they're healthy enough that they'll still produce for me. But some of them said, "No, I'm checking out." The peppers don't look as good as they did before the heat wave either. There's a lot of yellow in them. There are certain plants that'll do better in the heat than others.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Brussels sprouts, not good.
Right. Although those are a longer day crop, we tend to grow better Brussels sprouts if we plant them now and let them, because they can be
and then
90, 100 day crop or so.
Yeah.
You know, and then let them mature in the fall as the wet, temperatures cool down. They'll grow in the heat, and then and a lot of those cool season crops, we had such challenges even there's people that didn't even bother. They threw their hands up and gave up trying to get a garden planted this spring.
Yeah, ours was very, very late getting in.
Yeah, and so all those cool season crops, a lot of the broccoli, the cauliflowers, spinach, all those cool season crops, we get into this 90-degree weather. They don't like that, and they're going to say, I think my life's getting short, and so I'm going to flower, and I'm going to try to produce seed, and then I'm checking out. So you might see, if you planted broccoli or cauliflower, you might see that broccoli, the head of broccoli,
not heading up.
Right. So the head of broccoli itself is the immature, flower buds. Mm-hmm. And so if we let that mature on there, those are going to open as flower buds. They also can send up a flower stalk on there too. And then that's the end of that. And they're just yank them out. And cauliflower, those hot sunny days like that, the whole curd on top can start to turn. Yeah, it'll turn yellow. It'll turn brown. That has to be protected. And that's why those leaves are so big on those plants. The leaves help shield the part that we eat.
Yeah.
So that it protects it, and keeps it good.
Should we fold those leaves over then?
Yeah, and yes, it helps. Sometimes people will take some of those inner leaves and then tie them up, just put a rubber band around those so it closes that off, and so the sunlight can't get down into the head.
I see.
And there are some varieties now that are naturally wrapping. They will naturally, those leaves will grow up and close in over top of. Yeah, and protect it on its
engineering
own.
marvel, is that?
Yeah,
what
that's
that is?
that's a
agricultural engineering at work.
And genetics. Yes, breeding. So that's kind of cool. Somebody along the way, found the genes that are involved in that. And a lot of times in ag, it's just somebody notices something. Somebody's paying attention, and they see something that's different or novel, or that looks cool.
They see some plant behavior, and then they say to themselves, "Aha!
I think this could be something."
Yeah.
There's a lot of apple varieties that were developed that way. They had a tree, and that's not what it was, but they had a branch that exhibited a different color of fruit, and they saw that, and they were able to propagate that, and became a new variety. So that
became very rich too.
Possibly, yes, if they handled that all properly. But yeah, so the observation and plants will sometimes do that. Variegation is another thing that can happen, and as long as you can vegetatively propagate that so that you can repeat that. versus the seed, because the seed you can end up going back to what you had before and never find that again. But
What surprised me about the beans is that they struggled this week with all of that heat, because in the summertime, you do at least 2 plantings of beans, where the first bunch you're done with, you pull those plants out, you can replant and get a second. Some people can get a third planting in.
yeah.
And they grow all through the summertime. But
You're right. And beans can normally handle that summer conditions. Couple things going on there with all the cooler, wet weather we had. They may not have developed as strong a root system as they sometimes do. If they got to search out for water a little bit, then they might have a stronger root system and a little better able to adapt to that. And the other thing is the quick change that happened. We went from a lot of cooler weather and, cooler in the day, cooler at night, cloudy weather, and then boom, we go full sun, mid-90s. And so those plants get stressed and they're not able to adapt fast enough. And plus they've got that fruit or vegetable hanging on there.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy to produce that. And so then you get stressed and then they'll start to exhibit that. The other thing that can happen because of all the rainfall that we've had, the nutrients, especially nitrogen,
they leach on out of there.
That can become deficient. And so you can get yellowing because of that.
I see. All right.
If the whole leaf turns yellow or if the whole plant doesn't look as green and vibrant as it should, it's possible that the nitrogen that was there, nitrogen's very changeable element. It will, you can put it down as a liquid, and then if we get rain, that rain can push that through the system, down in deeper in the ground, past where the roots can absorb it. It can turn to a gas. So you can lose that, and then you got to replace it.
So in other words, you're getting to the root of the problem.
Yes, possibly.
All right.
We're trying to dig down for
Those
that.
Old Farmer's Almanac people we'll talk to on Monday. We'll talk about insects, pests. So it'd be an interesting conversation. Maybe we'll bring some of what they set up to you come Friday. Oh, actually, next Friday is the 4th. We won't be here.
We will. There you go.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
It's Indiana in the Morning on WCCS.